that's going to attach to the frame horns, and then that will fit right over like that, and then that is for your factory fog light.
Oh my God.
If you're like me and you wanted to keep the Jeep steel bumper, and it came with of course, the factory recovery point, which is this open-ended hook that bolts into the frame horns, there's very few options for upgrading that I've seen so far. And what I chose to do was to go with a Shackle Tab Kit from HK Off-Road, who's not sponsoring this video. And it consists of the Shackle Tab and this steel cover plate, and it replaces the plastic cover that goes over this crush can that is on the frame horn. So I chose to replace it because I was also looking for a way to flat toe the Jeep with a solid point. So this Shackle Tab Kit from HK Off-Road does come in bare steel, and in my case I chose to prime and paint it this black that matches the OEM bumper pretty well. Let's see the parts of the kit, how it goes together, and how I primed and painted it. Here's the recovery point, and it is a super thick, really solidly welded steel with some bolts. I've got it taped up here because I've got to paint it, prime and paint it, because it comes, bare steel. But that fits like this. This would be the passenger side, so that's going to attach to the frame horns, and then that will fit right over like that, and then that is for your factory fog light. So this replaces that cheesy, cheap-looking piece of plastic that covers the frame horns on the stock OEM steel bumper. So stick around, it should be a fun video, and hopefully I won't screw things up too bad. We'll see. So obviously you get the shackle tabs, and they look really good. These bolts that go through are welded. All these welds are really clean looking, pretty good looking. I left the nuts on the ends of the bolts here so that I can hang them upside down when I'm painting. And the cover plates, the walk washers, and regular washers, and then the hardware for these screw mount points that replaces that plastic cover. So I'm just going to go over these with some 120 grit sandpaper, get them cleaned up with mineral spirits, and then we will get to using a couple coats of etch primer, and then probably 3 coats of black flat automotive paint for the front bumper. So this isn't a step-by-step installation video. I did install this in a couple hours with the help of a few friends. It's helpful to get the bumper on and off with some friends. You could do this alone. Some notes about installation. So HK Off-Road will give you a one-page list of directions for installation. It's pretty straightforward. In a nutshell, you have to remove the front bumper. First, you disconnect the fog lights over here, and then you remove the front bumper, and then you have to remove the housing for the fog lights that's on each side separated in order to remove the red hook here that goes through the frame horns, as well as the way this is connected through the frame horns. It does require a 9/16 drill bit. You have to drill out the holes in the frame horns and in the housing for the fog light so that these larger bolts can then fit through that place of these old bolts, these studs. Now, it is possible, I've seen pictures of people who have reused this with the shackle tab and have both of them. However, the bolts for the shackle tabs are 9/16, you require a 9/16 hole. They're much larger than the studs that come on here. So you would have to punch out these studs and then drill these out to accommodate the pass-through for the much larger bolts on the Shackle Tab kit from HK Off-Road. So I didn't want to do that. It would require probably a drill press. This is very thick steel on this recovery point to enlarge those holes. That would have taken quite some time and equipment that I didn't have, and I just didn't think it was worth it just to retain the factory look there of that hook, since this does such a better job and is so much safer for a true recovery point and is so much more heavy duty. So overall, I think it came out really great. I like how it looks. The paint, the flat black that I got just matches the bumper here, and it's something you should really think about if you want to keep the OEM steel bumper. Of course, if you had already had plans to change this bumper and go a different route, a lot of them, everyone you buy pretty much for an aftermarket Jeep is going to have a shackle tab integrated, but I really like the look of this. A couple bonuses about this is that the steel housing here provides extra protection for the fog light. It's more recessed than it is with just that plastic piece, and there's not plastic surrounding it. Now you've got a steel surrounding of the fog light. So I think on the trail that's going to afford you a little more protection. Let's just take a closer look at how all of this looks and how it fits. This does come with the button bolts for all 6 locations. I chose to use the factory bolts here over the fog light. I thought it kind of looked neat with a separate look over there. But here's a little bit of a closer look when it's all installed. Looking in the hole from the old loop, you can see where it attaches to the factory horns here. And let's go around the side and take another different look. And then from the back side, you can see where the new larger bolts go through the frame horn on the inside of the bumper. There is some grinding and cutting involved, so you have to be comfortable with that sort of thing. And in this case, this is what's called a crush can, and behind your plastic cover of the fog light housing on the stock steel bumper, this resides, and this is what absorbs an impact in a crash, and that's why this protrudes a little bit underneath that plastic cover. So you have to first remove the fog light housing from the bumper on both sides, and then you take the fog light housing, and then you have to grind the welds off this and cut off this crush can so that you have a flat surface, because this goes where this crush can would go. It's pretty straightforward, but you have to be comfortable with cutting the welds off with a grinder, and then grinding everything flat, and then of course I touch it up with some black paint to prevent rust afterwards. So now you don't need these things anymore. So the first thing you do to get this reinstalled is take your modified fog light housing, put the shackle tab through it, and then put that through the frame horns. Get those cinched up with some bolts, not completely tight yet, and then you can put your steel bumper in place, cinch everything down, get the bumper cinched down, and then you put on the steel plate, cover plate over the top of everything when everything else is lined up and in place. A little tip here is when you're installing this plate, it does come with a curvature on it to fit the roundness of the bumper. I would recommend starting from the outside from the inside and working your way outward. And then when you get to the very end, there's a little bit of a gap here, and as you cinch up the bolts, it'll snug everything into place and align really nicely. So that's about it. It's not a killer. Get a couple buddies, knock it out in a couple hours, and have a great recovery point. So next month, some buddies and I are going down to Windrock, Tennessee, the off-road park, for some off-road fun for several days, and we'll see what this thing can really do. I have good faith that it'll hold up just fine. So thanks for checking this video out. I'll see you guys on the trail.